You are live on YouTube.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, guys. It's, we're missing just a couple of people, but I think we'll get started and hope that they are going to come. I think I need a, approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Did everyone see those? They did come out in our email. Thank you for a motion, Supervisor Smith, Supervisor Bruno on the second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Thank you. Okay. Did everybody see? I'm sorry I didn't get it out sooner to you guys, but I did make the track changes in the document. Are they in the agenda? Yep. Okay.
Yes. Did we get copies of the reds? Mine is part of the agenda.
I thought we could just have everyone scan through those and make sure they are what everyone thought they were going to be when I went in writing for us. And then we can jump to, I think the last major piece is going back to the failure section and whether or not we're going to do something about number 11. Okay.
Oh, come back here. She wants to know.
So if we start on page 1 in section D, I kind of consolidated those first 2 sentences so that it reads a little bit smoother, hopefully, that it applies to all developed real property that is located within 250 feet of the mean high water mark of the water body specified in Appendix A and serviced by an on-site wastewater treatment system with the definition of OWTS there. Regardless of the distance of the OWTS from the water body, unless, now this is really good lawyering, unless exempted by section H of this county law. And if you flip back there, that's where we had talked about adding the additional section. Ooh, it doesn't show up in track changes. That's not good. If you look at section H6, which is on page 6, that's the new exemption that says that if you are located within 250 feet of the mean high water mark, but the on-site wastewater treatment system itself is located more than 250 feet from the water body, then the inspection shall not be required. You guys remember we had talked about that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So it's kind of, it's a little bit circular, but I think it's okay.
I think it hit it. Looks good.
Oh, Craig, there you are. Thanks. Okay, good. All right, and then the last thing, this county law shall not apply in the towns of Bolton, Queensbury, and any other municipality that maintains and enforces local laws regarding septic inspections upon transfer of real properties by the time of the effective date of this county law. So for instance, if Horicon passes something before the effective date, then you would be not subject to this. But there is still the last sentence, which I think the consensus of the committee was, even though I don't personally agree with this, that the county law shall not apply to any municipality whose governing body passes a resolution to opt out. That is still in there. Frank. I mean, the one suggestion I heard is that we could make that opt-out provision such that you have to opt out by the effective date or else you're going to be in. That would give you, so the effective date is all the way at the end and it's, so right now it's put, it's listed as June 1st of 2022. Would the committee be agreeable to that? Like giving a deadline to opt out?
I'm good with that.
Frank?
Gotta get through this one.
Okay. Okay.
Lexi has a question.
Okay, hold on. Lexi?
Would it be easier to give a date to opt in by? Because otherwise you're forcing them all to opt out by a certain date. And what if, say, down the road, they decide they want to opt out or in?
They can always pass a new resolution the other way. I would
Okay.
rather leave it that they're in and it's, we're trying to make it as consistent as possible.
Okay, I would just say, I mean, just my opinion, but the towns that already have something, is it just not gonna apply to them, or do they have to do the opting out?
No, they won't have to do anything. Queensberry and Bolton are already going to be out.
What about Lake George?
No, they don't have anything.
Right.
They'll have to pass a law, which I know they will because their town board has already indicated that.
Okay,
Okay. All right. I think the next major place, I should tell you this, okay, because I did this. On page 3, there's no changes on page 2. I don't believe. No. So if you go to page 3, letter G, number 2, you should be able to see there in red where I added this, a list of the wastewater generating fixtures which discharge into the system and the number of bedrooms on the property that are served by the on-site wastewater treatment system. I got that from some feedback from an engineer who said it would be really useful to know how many bedrooms are actually going into the system.
Yeah,
Or, you know, how many bedrooms are serviced by the building?
that's what you base the size of these systems on, right?
Mhm.
By the number
Yeah,
of
right.
bedrooms.
Yes.
So that's
Okay.
Which section are you on? G,
G2, little letter D.
D. Okay, thank you.
Mhm. And then we fixed up, this was from Jim, from our friend up in Horicon, fix the Adirondack Park Agency. And then on the next page, we added language to say that the written notice of violation in order to remedy would also be sent to the town. And then the next couple of sentences are talking about how the remediation plan itself may require state and or local approval, including approval from the local board of health. And that the plan may require a system that is designed by a licensed engineer per state and or local requirements. Just to put in there the reminder that they might need to go get an engineer if it requires a whole new system.
Well, the only time that you are required to have it designed by a licensed professional engineer is if your system is not in conformance with 75A. In other words, if you meet all those requirements, you should be okay. But if you get, say, a hybrid system or something, then it needs to have the field designed by a licensed professional engineer. Not that it matters, but
I think, Sylvia, what's Jim's last name?
Steen.
Thank you. Mr. Steen, I think his point was, he didn't want people to think that they could go out and design it all themselves, because it says that it can be prepared by the record owner, which is really just talking about the remediation plan, not a engineered designed septic system.
that's
Dan,
telling you.
make sure you speak in the mic. They can't hear you on Zoom.
75A, the end of that tells you that if you are not in compliance with all of those requirements of 75A, then you need to have it designed by a licensed professional engineer.
Okay. We aren't trying to add anything new, just as a reminder to people. Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
What it
All right.
looked like, Madam Chairwoman,
Yes, Greg?
with that inclusion of that sentence there, that does fill in a gap of that all remediation plans may not, a remediation plan may not require a licensed engineer to implement, but at some point, I think Dan was getting towards this with the requirements of 75A. I know in the town of Chester, according to our local law, a replacement of a system is going to require a licensed engineer stamp plan.
Okay,
And I think this covers that.
okay, good. Yep, that was from Mr. Stein. Dean, thank you. Okay, page 5, it's just adding that a copy of the certificate of satisfactory septic inspection shall also be sent to the town. And then just to clarify that it could be the current property owner or the purchaser of the property, like the prospective purchaser, can provide this affidavit to the code enforcement department.
That's reasonable.
That's just a minor thing. I don't see any changes on, oh no, changes on page 6 include that paragraph 6. Okay, that's a whole new paragraph. I don't know why that didn't show up in red. I'm sorry about that. Any questions on that one? We talked about that last time, that if the property, I'm sorry, if the on-site wastewater treatment system is more than 250 feet, they won't need an inspection.
Right.
Okay. Then, okay, now we get to the really good stuff. The failure of the system. We had gone over before, a couple meetings ago, basically numbers 1 through 10. I think everyone's comfortable with the examples set forth in 1 through 10. It's just trying to flush out better what we are exactly saying in number 11. Do you agree with that, Craig? Do you want to say something on that one, Craig?
No, I just agree with what you just said.
Okay. So I did try to get some feedback on this one. I think there's someone from Park Commission, and also the water keeper is on. If either of you guys have anything you'd like to add, that would be useful to help us determine how we should further define a substantial nonconformity with the requirements of 75A. Jason?
Hi, I'm Jason with the Park Commission. Let me know if you can't hear me or if I'm coming in fuzzy, but
You're coming in great, thanks.
great. Okay. Only feedback I can get is in our experience, there isn't a clear definition by term except for a positive dye test. That's the only thing that we have gotten from our, we took an OTN, that's an on-site training network training. That's what Bolton used. And they couldn't define a hard failure besides a confirmed dye test into a water body. It's kind of a non-answer, but it is still tricky. So we're working on that too.
Okay, I mean, that is kind of, Chris, are you able to add anything?
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman. I really feel, I think one of the leading causes I feel for septic system failure, and failure, there's a lot of, definitions out there or interpretations, I guess, on what a failure is. Is it blatant puddling of septic or sewage on the surface, or is it a system that is not compliant and therefore is not meeting what the recommended standards are for proper wastewater treatment and protection of public health? So in that sense, I think such things as septic tank size are critical for a system to be functioning properly. And that's what you're striving, is to have a system that is functioning properly. In a septic tank, I apologize, this may be, people may be aware of this, but the key thing for a septic tank is the settling of solids. And that, as one of the supervisors stated earlier, is sized directly to the number of bedrooms. So if your septic tank under an inspection falls short of what the stated number of bedroom is on real estate property assessment or tax rolls, that is something that is leading to premature failure of a system. And I think that is something is a key component that can correct a system that is in jeopardy of failure. So such things as having the tank sized adequately is not a replacement of an entire system. It is an expense, but it is not an expense of great magnitude, and can actually save a much greater expense of premature failure of the entire system, meaning tank too small, solids start migrating and clogging the field, and then you've got a real big problem. So I think, and I think the one point when you start putting numbers in to say that 75% of the capacity is there, if you've got comparing a 3-bedroom to a 4-bedroom, that's a 1,000 gallon tank to a 1,250 gallon tank. And actually, if you say that it's 75%, or less, if you've got a 1,000 gallon tank, that's about 80% of what a 1,250 gallon tank is, but you're shy 1 bedroom. So I would just recommend to stick to Department of Health requirements, 75A for bedrooms. So I hope that helps or doesn't create too many questions for folks, but I'd be glad to take any questions.
Well, I have a question, or maybe, is there maybe a difference between not meeting compliance and failure? Because couldn't an undersized tank that is never used not be failing? If nobody's ever using an undersized septic and it's not causing any kind of environmental harm, is that by definition a failure? It's not failing in terms of an engineering standpoint or a septic standpoint, but it is out of compliance. So that's the difference between them. So one is not necessarily, you can imagine a tank that's never ever used and it's undersized and it's not doing any harm to the lake. And is that failing? Do we have to replace that if it's, that's just the difference between non-compliance and an actual septic tank failure. The only thing that is qualified failure is the dye test. But I agree, there are plenty of undersized septic tanks in or under, regular, that are out of compliance. So.
Well, if it's never being used, then I guess it's no concern of everybody because it's not being used. But if it's being used, I, as a licensed engineer, would not put my stamp on it if it's undersized.
Mr. Bruno or Supervisor Bruno?
I agree. If it's never used, but it's not sized correctly, it's non-compliant. And you can either tag that somehow, whatever. In other words, put something in the record that if it is ever used in the future, it needs to be brought into compliance. And I agree that, you should just probably reference 75A rather than try to, that was a previous comment from,
I know that was one of my thoughts, is that, yeah, it's a little bit nebulous the way that we had it, but it gives the inspector the discretion to figure out where there is a substantial non-compliance.
Yeah. Madam Chair.
Yes, Craig.
Thank you. This is upon transfer of property. So it's a game changer at that point in time. You might have a seasonal residence that has hardly ever been used, has an aged system in there that is undersized at this point in time, according to the regs. But somebody else is buying that and their intent may be to inhabit it much more. So this goes back then to that blanket criteria of so many gallons per bedroom, so on and so forth, according to 75A, because you're building out to what its full potential is. So granted, there's plenty of systems that are undersized and underutilized at the same time, but because there will be a change in ownership, that may mean that it will get a lot more use and not be appropriately sized for that use.
So, I mean, one of the things I'm totally fine with this. this is good discussion. And I don't know if you guys see there the suggestion about if it's less than 75% of the required capacity, you'd have to go to 75A and look up the table and see how many bedrooms you are, and that tells you how big your tank is supposed to be, right?
These are,
The other thing to think about is that if it truly is a building where it's not being used at all, they could come in and ask for an exemption. There's that section that talks about, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it. It says where the property is to be conveyed is not intended to be inhabited, then the property owner may receive an exemption, but they have to then, provide this notarized affidavit kind of thing. So I like Craig's point, though, a lot of these are not going to be not inhabited. They're probably going to be more inhabited than they ever were, just from what we're seeing in trends with real estate markets right now. So in the event that someone is going to not use it at all, that would be exempt, but they'd have to provide an affidavit saying so. But if they are going to use it, then it needs to comply with the capacity requirements, right?
yeah, and these, I'm okay with this, I guess, at second look, because we do reference, this is number 11, substantial failure and substantial nonconformity references 75A. And then these are just examples, and maybe I'll just say example or whatever, leave it the way it is, I don't care, but that's all those are.
We could say, instead of such as, we could say examples include if the size is blah, blah, blah.
Whatever the committee.
Okay, we can do that. Frank?
Well, going back to your point, I think it's important that the inspectors have a little bit of discretion there. I think, I just think that's probably best. I understand 75A is the standard, but, unless we're going to have another affordable housing program, things get expensive.
I agree. I know.
I'm good with that.
I don't really think there needs to be a hard and fast rule about it. But Craig, this provides some more framework.
That's right. And that was feedback I had gotten from engineers, people that would be out there inspecting, of saying, what guideline do we go by for failure, especially when it comes into nonconformity, substantial nonconformity. It's an imperfect science at this point. We want to keep it loose enough so that there is discretion among the inspectors, but tight enough that they have something to go by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Charles, I see that you're on here. Do you have anything to add on this particular point? Are you listening, Charles? There you are.
Yeah, I'm trying to do both things at once here with in-service trading. No, I'm kind of just been listening. I'm good with whichever direction you want to go. There doesn't seem to be a clear-cut path as far as the substantial failure or nonconformity. I'm good with wherever you guys end up with that. And if I suppose if we find that we're running into difficulties, I mean, there is always the option, I'm assuming, to go back and amend this law. Yes?
Frank?
I think the intent to be in compliance with 75A is definitely within the law in several places. So I think if you're at a property and it's not exactly how it should be, but it's functioning and maybe it's not being used a lot but it's working. I think, the inspector should have discretion to sign off on it and say it's okay.
Okay.
But they should know that, 75A is how it should be. Maybe that should be in his report. Maybe he should have a section where he can write that up.
Okay.
Right. If
Dan?
I'm out doing an inspection and it's not in conformance, I'm going to cite specific sections or portions of 75A that is out of compliance. So to me, it's fairly easy.
Okay. So is everyone okay if we change that to say examples include the size of the tank, less than 75% of the required capacity? Okay, okay.
Yes.
I think that's fine. I think so. Anybody else? Okay, I'm gonna move on. Still, yep. Charles, thank you for your input. I know you're trying to work and listen. Thank you. We did change it so that the oversight committee would be county facilities, and that the appeals would be sent directly to the code enforcement department. So Lexi, you're off the hook for that. Thumbs up, yep. Okay. Oh, I see there's a wee little Z there. That letter doesn't need to be there. Okay. And then anything new? No, that's it. That's actually it. All right. All right, guys. Are we ready to take a motion to move this as amended to the board workshop tomorrow? Supervisor Bruno.
I move that.
Okay, do I have a second? Supervisor Thomas. Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman. Did you want to say something?
Thank you for all of the compromise and the hard work and the research over the last 3 years that has gone into this, but particularly the last 6 months. My only suggestion would be, of course, it's going to be a presentation to the workshop, but you may want to take a vote.
What are you drinking?
I'm sorry, Chairwoman, your signal.
To a full board
Okay,
vote to set the public hearing, as well. That can come out of your, want to put it. Sorry, I'm on my way there, but you guys are.
that's okay.
Am I still losing you? All right, never mind.
No. Chairwoman, I'm going to stop you right there because we cannot hear. Okay, she muted herself.
Let me try again.
I think her suggestion is a good one, that we shouldn't send it to workshop. We're going to do the presentation at workshop, but we should send it on to the full board for consideration, which wouldn't be tomorrow because that's not a real, that's not a meeting where we would take action. We'll just do the presentation tomorrow, but we will forward it on to the full board. Is that okay with you, Supervisor Bruno
Yes, it is.
and Thomas, to amend your motions in that way? All right.
That's fine.
Is there any further discussion? And I will say, I will need to work, we will need to work with Robert to make sure that we are doing all the legal steps necessary, including our seeker review, Robert, before we can move this at all. But I think this has been really great. I really appreciate everybody's hard work on the committee. It was a lot of digging into the details, and you guys were really great to work with. Thank you. All right, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries. Is there any further discussion? Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Claudia, for all the work in this.
It's been great. I'm glad we're making some headway. Jason, would you mind giving us an update on where the Park Commission is in its process? I know I'm just sort of throwing this on you, but I think you'll be okay.
Oh, yeah, no problem. So we are planning to go to our board in November for a vote like this to push something forward for an actual seeker review of what a park-wide program would look like. And right now we're just putting together information for them to for them to make the decision to do that, but we're intending for them to have the vote in November. And then that would initiate the seeker process, and there would be an EI, an environmental review. So coming up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys are moving right along as well.
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised to hear that, but that's great. All right. Is there anything further to come before our committee today? All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Supervisor Bruno, Supervisor Thomas, all those in favor?
I,
Aye, opposed? That carries. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Lexi, Charles, Chris, Jason. Don, I should have